Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Wednesday night with your host, Coach Menachem Bernfeld, the fundamentals to gain inner peace. And Baruch Hashem, we're here now, number 55. So I want to thank you all for being here. And most important, thank yourself for being here, taking some time off from a busy day, a busy life, so much going on, taking some time off to reflect. So last week we discussed one of the S's, and we discussed how it feels to be seen, what it means to be seen. And today we're going to be asking many questions. And again, it's only going to be the beginning. It's some heavy questions. You don't have to answer them. Just see if something comes up. So it's questions for parental self-reflection, to be able to reflect of how we grew up. And it could take us back many years. We're not going to get too deep into it, just an overview. And maybe in Mitzvah Hashem, the coming weeks, we'll be able to take one at a time. But before we start, let's first come inside the room, take a deep breath, and just become aware of where you are, physically, in the room, or if you're driving, watch the road, if you're listening to the recording. How you're feeling, what your day looked like, emotionally, internally, how you feel inside your body. You can relax, just take it easy and take a deep breath. It's okay to slow down, even though people are scared. Who knows what's going to come up? But you're okay. You're safe. You're here. And whatever it is, whatever you're going through, you can slow down, relax, take it easy. Beautiful. So let's go over. Last week we discussed what it means to be seen. It's a deeper feeling, a feeling of I am, I belong, I make a difference, or I'm simply needed. And the truth is, just by listening to someone, whether it's to your child, just by listening to them when they talk, you're showing them that whatever you tell me makes a difference. I'm interested. Being able to be present for your child, for any relationship at work or at home. The most important is to be there for yourself. Like we discussed many times, when you feel something, listen to that feeling, listen to that voice, even though it might be uncomfortable, but just be there. Validate. That's what it means to feel seen. And we discussed two stories last week. I'll just mention it briefly. When the child comes home, runs inside the house with some beetles, some bugs in a jar, and wants to show the mother. And the mother reacts, get out of the house. This doesn't belong inside the house. Grabs the child by the hand and carries him out of the house. What does that tell the child? How does the child feel? Just, mommy, I just want to show it. I want to show it to you. Versus if the mother would realize how she feels right away, that initial reaction. First, get it out. She's aware of the thought. She's aware of the feeling and stops and makes herself interested, looks at it and says, wow, look at them. Whoa. And then slowly, says, I think they belong outside. They would enjoy outside. And you go to the door, you take it out. So the child feels somebody was there, somebody understands. The other story is when that cautious little girl is walking on a log, and the teacher was watching the girl do it one step after another, one foot in front of the other. And she did the whole log. And the teacher got so excited and started screaming, "Whoa, you did it." And what happens is this child wants to run away. She feels this teacher, I don't know what this teacher is screaming about. This child is not going to do it again. It's too much for her. If this teacher would have realized that she reacted based on how she feels, on how the adult teacher feels, so she could put that on the side and think to herself, what does this child feel? She was like very cautious, tried, and she did it. And continued and continued. And finally she came off. So if you go over and say, wow, I saw you were able to keep on going even though it was hard. So that's coming down to their level, understanding what they're feeling, connecting. That's how we can connect relationships, no matter where. It doesn't have to be only a child, whether it's a spouse. It's really understanding what they feel. And the only way you can tap into what they feel is first be aware of what you feel, so that you can put it on the sides. Whatever comes up for you, become aware of what comes up for you. You might be very excited, but they're not. So put away your excitement and talk to them. Ask them, what was it like? And you can connect. So these are very interesting examples. Another interesting example, a basic example would be if you're talking to someone in the middle, they take out their phone, they get a phone call, and they say, just a second, they get on the phone. That's like, in today's days, we're not so, we hope that it doesn't affect, but excuse me, we're in the middle of talking. It's an important phone call, I have to go. You have to realize that you're just walking away in the middle of talking to someone. Or another example, your child is scared to go upstairs by himself. Scared, it's at night, it's dark, and you're like, you're 11 years old. Why can't you just go yourself? And by screaming, it just makes it worse. So first, to realize how you're upset that they can't go upstairs by themselves. They always need you. And it's very annoying. You feel annoyed. And then just let it flow. Let's see what happens. Now, one night, you see the child going upstairs. So you can react two ways. One is like screaming, like, whoa, you see, you were able to do it. You did it. You can do it again, you see. Or I would advise, don't say anything yet. The child himself, it's like, whoa, he doesn't even realize what he did. Let them do it once. Let them do it twice. And then eventually you can mention it, but don't make it too exciting. Don't shine the spotlight on the child. They're going to run away. And this is also important for teenagers. You know, you haven't had a real relationship with them, and now you want to start a relationship. You might say, okay, let's go, let's have a good time. Oh, I'm so excited to do this. So that they're not used to this showering with so much compliments. So first, just be there. Don't be on your phone. Just be present. And then they'll feel, oh, somebody's in the room with me. So that's what we covered last week. Today, I would like to continue with questions. It's from the book, from the same book that we mentioned last week, Parenting from the Inside Out. And basically, it's questions, again, heavy questions. I'm going to try to go through all of them, but you don't have to dig in so deep. Let's see what comes up. So let me share my screen just a second. Here we go. So these are questions for parental self-reflection. These questions are going to take us back to our younger years. And it's important, it doesn't always have to be parental self-reflection. It's in general self-reflection. See what's going on, how we feel. And it's heavy questions. And I remember when I started this journey, my first answer would be to all these questions, I don't remember. I think everything was fine. And if you don't have any memories, that's also fine. Don't beat yourself up. It's okay. After a while being on this journey, vague ideas come up. Ooh, that story, maybe in school, a friend, a parent. Did that make a difference? Nah, probably not. Okay, it's okay. You don't have to dig. You don't have to try to really get to anything over here. Just let subconscious work. Let's go through the questions. If you do find that by one of these questions you feel very uncomfortable, so mark it down. I don't know if you have a copy. I sent it in the email, but I could send it in the replay. But if you have by one of these questions, like ideas that it's bothering you something, mark it down, be aware, just be aware. Let's not go too far. And again, if you feel you do need help and you know of stories that definitely you went through a very challenging childhood, then let's reach out for help to get those people that can help us, that can hold our hands and slowly go back to those places. But for tonight, take a deep breath, let's relax, take it easy, and let's follow these questions. So here we are. Number one, what was it like growing up? Who was in your family? Basic awareness. Just basic awareness. Just a second. Okay. How did you get along with your parents early in your childhood? How did your relationship evolve throughout your youth and into the present? Now we should really be sitting on each question, but we're going to continue. Just read, see if anything comes up. How did your relationship with your mother and father differ? How are they similar? Are there ways in which you try to be like or try not to be like? Or maybe one parent yeah and the other parent not? Just basic questions. Things could come up or maybe not. Did you feel rejected or threatened by your parents? Were there other experiences you had that felt overwhelming or traumatizing in your life during childhood or beyond? Are you aware of any stories? Do any of these experiences still feel very much alive? You still have those thoughts, you live with them? Do they continue to influence your life? Number 5, how did your parents discipline you as a child? What impact did that have on your childhood? And how do you feel it affects your role as a parent now? You feel that it has a connection or maybe not? Do you recall your earlier separations from your parents? What was it like? Do you ever have a prolonged separations from your parents? Did you ever have prolonged separations from your parents for a long time? Did anyone significant in your life die during your childhood or later in your life? What was it like? What was that like for you then? And how does that loss affect you now? How did your parents communicate with you when you were happy and excited? Did they join with you in your enthusiasm? Were you distressed or unhappy as a child? what would happen? Did your father or mother respond differently to you during these times, and how? So again, these questions are heavy, can be heavy, and many of you have had stories. So if you're aware of them, just make a mark, jot them down, and we'll come back. Was there anyone else besides your parents in your childhood who took care of you? What was that relationship like for you? What happened to those individuals? What is it like for you when you let others take care of your child now? If you had difficult times during your childhood, were there positive relationships in or outside your home that you could depend on during those times? Did you have any positive relationships? How do you feel those connections benefited you then, and how might they help you now? Many people would remember of a teacher, someone who was there for them, whatever comes up. How have your childhood experiences influenced your relationships with others as an adult? Do you find yourself trying not to behave in certain ways because of what happened to you as a child? Do you have patterns of behaviors that you would like to alter but have difficulty changing? What impact do you think your childhood has had on your adult life in general, including the ways in which you think of yourself and the ways you relate to your children? What would you like to change about the way you understand yourself and relate to others? Okay, so I don't want to go into it too deep. If anything came up, write them down. And I believe it was much more than 12 questions. More than 12 questions, and many of them heavy. You can sometimes take one question and meditate. You sit down for a few minutes, you take one question, and you just think about it and see what comes up. You can sit with a pen and paper, write down any thoughts that come up, ideas, even though you think it might not make a difference, write it down. And what it does is it jogs some of the memory. And you might think, why should I dig? Why should I go back to those years? Why not just look ahead? Look ahead and hope for the best. And it does sound like a good idea. But like we've discussed many times, that it has an effect, the way we feel about ourselves, the way we act, the relationships we have, and the way we relate to our kids. And sometimes it's sometimes tricky to become aware of how you feel so that you can tap into how your child feels, your spouse, or any relationship that you want to connect to. The only way you can do it is if you can stop and realize how you feel. So the only way how to do that is to slow down and look back. We're not here to blame. We're not here to claim that we're a victim of our childhood. You know, we are where we are, and yes, we are moving forward. But when there are things that come up, sometimes you feel you hit a wall. You're wondering why you get so nervous, why you're having a hard time with certain things. So by asking yourself these questions, looking back and seeing what's going on, what went on when you were younger. And for those who have had stories when it's clear abuse or clear dysfunction in the house, so it's easier, whether it's a divorce or health issues. Again, not to blame anybody. If you had a sibling that wasn't well, your parents were busy, or if the relationship, your parents' relationship weren't the best and there was a lot of screaming, you might think to yourself, okay, that, I thought it was normal and I don't think it had any effects, but sometimes it does. And then it takes us to the discussion that we had about childhood emotional neglect, becoming aware of maybe our parents weren't able to connect emotionally for whatever reason. And having a health issue in the family could be a good reason. Your parents were in the hospital, they were always running, they were always worried, they weren't able to be there for all of you. And you managed. And now, older, trying to figure out, trying to see, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this way about myself? Why can't I just feel good about myself? What's with my self-esteem? Why am I having such a hard time? And the answers could be laying in those few years, those early years. So again, heavy questions. If something comes up, be aware of it. If you feel you do need help, reach out to therapists, people who deal with this. They can hold your hand, even a few sessions. And some people are worried, where do I find the best therapists? How do I find the best therapist? I know I need the help. And what I tell them is, don't look for the best. It's a journey. Start and see if you connect. And if you don't, after a few weeks, you'll find someone else. But to stay home and try to find the perfect one, that's part of looking for perfect. And many times when we look for perfect, what happens? We stay at home. So that's it for tonight. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. We'll try to answer 1 or 2 questions. So here we go. I wasn't able to connect to any of these questions. They're great questions, but I don't have any answers, or maybe it's not a question for you. So again, like I mentioned, many people, when you read these questions, it does sound like amazing questions, but you don't think it made a big difference. Everything was fine. And again, we can stay on the positive side. Maybe you had a beautiful upbringing. Baruch Hashem, all your teachers and friends were always there for you. And you're doing great, which is amazing. Keep it up. But for many, it does bring up, whether it's struggles that they have, ideas. Just recently, I met somebody, a very successful person, and he knows that he's successful, but for some reason, he feels like a loser. He feels like he's worthless. So where does that come from? What's that feeling? And many times, success covers up these feelings. I better be successful. Because if I'm not successful, all these negative feelings come up. So many people are trying very hard to be successful, and today they have even a very good gadget that helps you not to remember all those feelings, not to be with those feelings, not to be present, and it's called a phone. People are on their phone all day, and you're wondering why. because they're distracted. And it makes sense. It's hard to stop. It's hard to slow down. It's hard to breathe, because then the inner self, the way you feel about the world, the way you feel about yourself, about your kids, spouse, relationships, wherever you are, things come up. We don't want them to come up. I hate it. I don't want to be aware of it. Let me just run, be busy and distracted. And then you try and figure out, why am I so out of breath? I am successful. What's going on? I can't just stop. You're running on the rat race, and there's a reason for it. You're running away from something. So these questions could bring up why a person would feel this way. Whether you didn't feel seen when you were younger, or even verbal abuse in challenging relationships, and it makes you feel the way you feel about yourself. So awareness is step number one. Awareness is always step number one. Without being aware, we can't change anything. Becoming aware, which could be sometimes a little bit painful, but that's the first step. So I hope you got a copy of these 12 questions. If not, I'll send it I can send the replay, or next week, send it there, print it out. A copy of the 12 questions from the book, Parenting from the Inside Out. And take one question at a time. And if there are any questions that you feel takes you back to those areas which need help, find yourself someone, just a few sessions, someone you can talk to. It doesn't have to be a therapist. It could be a friend, someone who can sit there, understand, validate, who has that understanding that we're discussing over here, and not just say, well, you're good. What are you talking about? You're doing great. Stop with these stuff. And all of what's going to happen is basically what happened when you were younger. And now as an adult, that inner child has questions. And the adult today is doing the same thing, pushing it away, suppressing it. Don't talk about it. But your inner child wants to talk about it, needs you to be there for him. So thank you very much for joining. That's it for tonight. Take care of yourself. You're doing great. Thank yourself for being here, for taking some time for yourself just to relax, to take it easy. And maybe sometimes opening a little bit of can of worms, which we don't like. But you can breathe, continue breathing, and hopefully eventually we come out. Let the waves ride up and down. The emotions come in and out. Don't hold it back. Don't suppress. It's okay to feel. Have a good night, and I'll see you next week, Wednesday night. Good night and a good week.